tapes of creation when we get to it. But in nature, animals have a fixed turnaround period when they go through. Like we die and pass on and go to the fine matter world, and when we come back is determined by other factors, which I'll get into later. But the animal world is controlled. It's kind of on a calculated numbering system. They always come back the same number of years. So it's more of a controlled, instinctive system with animals. Animals, again, are not part of the human evolution. The human spirit form did not evolve out of the animal world. Creation created the animals and then all of the nature spirit forms separately from the human spirit forms. At such a time on the planet when the planet was evolved enough for human life form to be here, the human spirit form was created and evolved out of a different level of intelligence for different reasons and to operate in a different manner, like I said. It's a wisdom system, which I'll explain more about later on. So we did not evolve out of any animals or any form of nature. There's confusion about that because anthropologists are always trying to relate us somehow, that missing link, to the monkeys and so forth, which is not true. As I explained to you earlier, quite a few of the unusual monkey types actually were created out of experiments from our early ancestors who were using human genetics and mixing it with animals, and that's where most of the monkey types actually came from, including the Bigfoot sort of thing. Billy asked how their radios work. If it was, just dial in like we do, but how do they communicate like from planet to planet? And if they're a long ways away, radio waves are far too slow to get an immediate answer. It could take thousands of years to get an answer as slow as radio waves are. She says, well, our radios don't operate in normal space. We send our messages through hyperspace, much like we do the ships. They actually attach their message, whatever it is, to particles that we call, she says, they're similar to the particles that we call tachyon particles. And these particles can accelerate in hyperspace at speeds way beyond the speed of light and almost instantaneously reappear at some other location in the galaxy. So they have learned how to build radios which actually send messages through the hyperspace so they can hear each other immediately at different parts of the galaxy. There were some questions on gravity, like what is it, can we do it, and what could you explain about that? And it kind of caught her off guard because at first she says, well, I'm not allowed to talk about that. That again, that we see you so far out of balance with your technical development that we are not really interested in supplying you information that you don't need. You don't need to know about anti-gravity yet, because the last thing you need to do is get off your planet. You need to spend more time with your social development. But she offered a few insights into that. She says it is electromagnetical in nature. There are two unitary but contrary forces. And here's kind of a key phrase. She says that the Earth generates the gravity. Now, generates may be a key here. It's the cause of the gravity, she says, also can be found in the self-warmth of the planet and the cold of space. So there's something to do with this, the difference in temperature between the coldness of space and the warmth of our atmosphere that also contributes to the gravity itself. She says another contributing factor is the core of the planet, which is very dense. And that's also a contributing factor. So there are several things involved here in the creation of the gravity. But the planet is generating it. Temperature has something to do with it. Mass has something to do with it. I think that probably in different private circles here on our planet, people have probably already kind of figured that out. And it would be interesting to see if their explanation falls in line with Billy's notes. Among other questions was about the Pleiadians themselves. She remarked that the Pleiadians live in a solar system of 9 planets. We believe that ours has 9, but later on they're going to tell us that there's actually 11. There's 2 kind of renegade planets far out floating around that we hadn't discovered yet. But there's 9 planets in their solar system. On the planet Era, which is the planet that Semjase comes from, there are approximately 400 million people living on that planet. She says when her earliest ancestors had come to Earth on several occasions, the ancient Lyrians and so, they were familiar with Earth. And when they left Earth and returned back to their own world, at a certain point, they fled out into the world themselves, and they found a planet very similar to Earth, just like it. The planet Era has 365 and a quarter days. A day is 23 hours and 59.4 seconds long, which is pretty amazing that it rotates that accurately to Earth. The Pleiadian word for a day is musal, M-U-S-A-L. A second, a word for a part second they call it, is odor, O-D-U-R. A year is 13 months long with a compensation time every 23 years, so they're doing a little different calendar than we are. The word for a month is an ASAR, A-S-A-R. Their atmosphere is 70 to 75% nitrates, 25 to 29% oxygen, and about 1% rare gases like carbon dioxide and argon. Argon, excuse me, not Aragon, that's a ballroom someplace. Argon. Era has a little higher oxygen content. It's 32.4%, higher than the other planets. Their surface gravity is 1.003. Density is 5.521. Axis inclination is 22.99 degrees. The equatorial diameter is 12,749 kilometers, and their planet is moving through space at 11.19 kilometers a second. So there's some statistics for the astronomy types, if you want to do some comparison there. To the planet Earth. She says compared to our calendar, that she was born actually on February 7th. That was Semjas's birth date. She says the Plejadians are very much into astrology, but they know far more about it, and their astrology is far more accurate. That there is definitely something to the concept that the radiations put out by planets do affect life. There's no doubt about it. She just commented that Earth astrology is not very accurate at this point, that more has to be learned about how these radiations actually affect the human spirit. Another interesting subject that was brought up at the 55th contact Monday, that was on June 14th. Semjase has a brother and a sister. Her sister's name is Pleja, P-L-E-J-A, and her brother's name is Yukata, which sounds kind of Japanese. It's Y-U-K-A-T-A. Now, again, let me reiterate, I don't believe any of these names of planets or anything, because it doesn't make any sense that they would all have the sameness of sound. Even on our own planet Earth, you go from one language to the other, and all the sounds and the styles of language are all different. But here in Billy's notes, everywhere he goes, the planet names, system names, galaxy names, universe names, people names, they are obviously all from the same language. They're all with the same phrasing and so forth, and lettering and spelling. So I don't believe that actually they're using correct names. I think for the most part that many of these names are probably just made up for these particular contacts or whatever, but that's my opinion at any rate. I don't think Semjase is probably even her real name, and I don't think Ptah is her father's real name. These are probably just names they've used, for this particular mission, because these are words that mean something in their language that refer to them, but it's not really their own names. They've tried pretty much throughout all the contacts to kind of keep their personal thing private. Billy comments that his wife is coming around and getting very interested in the contacts. She'd had a lot of difficulties previous to this, but it's coming around, and Semjase says she knows, and that she's going to extend some thoughts to Billy's wife and offer her some help in her own spiritual growth. Ptah, Semjase's father, is 759 years old. And I've got a little space on the tape here, I think, just to tell you one more thing, which is ice ages. Ice age is a natural event in the evolution of a planet. And we're going to find out more in the creation tapes about how all life goes through cycles of off and on and awake and sleep periods. Well, a planet does the same thing, and it does it by virtue of an ice age. The planet we have to start thinking of is a living creature also. It has to evolve like anything else. It has a very low consciousness, not much of a personality, but we have to start looking at it like that. Ice ages are a way for the planet to go through its own evolutionary stages. It has to sleep also. Okay, again, we're running out of tape, so we'll continue with the Ice Age on next tape. See you over there.